They slapped his wife. 3 fake HOA cops in knockoff vests, flashing toy badges. Thought intimidation would work, only to find out her husband wasn't just any resident. He was a Navy SEAL they never should have messed with. The quiet suburb looked ordinary that morning, but under the surface, tension was already brewing. Thomas Miller, a black man who had only recently moved into the neighborhood, knew he wasn't exactly welcomed by everyone. Jane Brooks, the HOA president, had made that clear by slapping him with bogus fines, not about grass height or paint color, but because he was a black man she didn't want in her neighborhood. To her, his presence, a strong black family in a community she thought she owned, was enough reason to make him a target. Have you ever seen power twisted so far that someone actually sent fake cops to your doorstep, not to uphold the law, but to put you in your place? What would you do if those same men laid hands on your wife right in front of your home? Before we dive further, tell us, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. We love seeing where you're tuning in from. And if you believe no black family should ever be targeted or diminished because of prejudice, hit that like button and subscribe to Story Arc, because moments like this can happen anywhere, and we need to call them out every time. That afternoon, her plan came to life. Thomas's wife, Sophia, had stepped outside to water the garden. That's when she noticed a black SUV crawling slowly down the block, circling not once, not twice, but 3 full times before stopping across the street. Her instincts sharpened. Out stepped 3 men in tactical vests, each with shiny patches stitched on reading HOA Police. At a glance, it might have fooled someone, but Sophia's eyes caught every detail. Belts made of cheap nylon, plastic holsters, no radios. Real officers never arrive without communication gear. The tallest one strutted forward. His tone was clipped and fake. "Ma'am, HOA compliance inspection," he barked, flashing a badge so cheap it looked like it belonged in a toy aisle. Sophia squared her shoulders. "Since when does the HOA hire police officers?" The second man smirked. "We're not hired, lady. We are the law here." Her stomach tightened. She told them firmly to leave, that stepping onto private property without cause was trespassing. But instead of backing down, the third one stepped closer, fingers brushing the baton at his side. When Sophia pulled out her phone to record, his smirk turned to violence. He slapped it from her hand, and then with a sudden swing, slapped her across the face. Her cry of pain cut through the air. In the garage, Thomas froze mid-task. He had been sorting old gear, but when he heard his wife's yell, instinct overtook him. He rushed out, his body locking into that old military posture before his mind could catch up. There was Sophia, clutching her cheek, and 3 men posturing in their cheap uniforms. Thomas's eyes locked on them, fury simmering beneath his calm. His voice cut through the air like a blade. "Did you just put your hands on my wife? That's a move you'll regret for the rest of your life." He took 1 step forward, steel in his eyes. "You've got 5 seconds to explain who sent you." The tallest of the 3 smirked, trying to puff himself up. "The HOA president said you've been ignoring notices. We're here to make sure you comply." He locked eyes with Thomas, but intimidation didn't land. Thomas Miller had stared down mercenaries overseas. A suburban actor in a vest from a surplus shop wasn't going to shake him. He turned to Sophia. "Go inside. Lock the door." She obeyed instantly, knowing what that tone meant. Thomas stepped forward, his voice low but sharp. "So you think you can slap my wife and get away with it?" The men laughed, but it sounded thinner now. When Thomas demanded identification, they had nothing to offer. Real law enforcement is required by statute to identify themselves. These clowns refused. In that moment, the truth clicked. This wasn't trespassing anymore. It was full-on impersonation of an officer, a federal crime. Thomas shifted his stance, steady feet, squared shoulders, eyes like stone. It was the same readiness he'd used in combat zones when things were seconds from exploding. Their laughter faltered. The tall one jabbed a finger at him, voice straining for authority. "You think you can ignore HOA rules? Your truck, your fence, those dogs, you've been warned. We're here to enforce compliance." Thomas let out a cold laugh. "First of all, my truck is legal, my fence passes city code, and those dogs are service animals protected by law. Second," he closed the distance, forcing the man to stumble back. "You're trespassing. You're impersonating. That's a decade behind bars if you're lucky." The shortest one tried to hold the line. "We'll cuff you right here." He fumbled at his belt, pulling out a pair of flimsy toy cuffs that wouldn't hold a teenager. Thomas's patience ended. In a blur, he caught the man's wrist, twisted until the cuffs hit the ground there, and drove his elbow into the man's jaw. The imposter collapsed on the lawn, groaning. The second one came charging with a baton. Thomas sidestepped, caught his arm mid-swing, and flipped him hard over his shoulder. He hit the pavement with a crack that silenced the neighbors now gathered at their windows, filming every second. The leader froze, wide-eyed. He tried to keep the act alive. "You're assaulting officers!" Thomas stepped into his space, voice cutting like ice. "No, I'm stopping 3 criminals who assaulted my wife. Big difference." Sophia appeared in the doorway again, phone raised high this time. "Already called the sheriff," she shouted. "They're on the way. They're on the way." The leader cursed and tried to run. Thomas snatched the back of his vest, slammed him against the hood of the SUV, and pinned him down. Without training, the man had nothing left but fear. Minutes later, sirens wailed. Deputies poured out, weapons drawn. "Hands where we can see them." Thomas complied immediately, hands raised. Sophia pointed straight at the imposters. "Those are the ones. They hit me. They pretended to be cops." The deputies stripped off the fake vests, cuffed the men properly, and pressed them for answers. Under the weight of real authority, the ringleader cracked. The truth spilled fast. The HOA president had paid them to scare the Freemans into submission. What looked like neighborhood drama was now exposed as a criminal conspiracy. Down at the sheriff's station, the 3 fake cops didn't look so tough anymore. Their knockoff vests and plastic badges were sealed in evidence bags, and this time the cuffs on their wrists weren't toys. Sitting under the harsh fluorescent lights, they looked less like enforcers and more like schoolboys caught cheating. And the story they'd been clinging to, it was already unraveling. Under questioning, it came out exactly as Thomas suspected. They hadn't been freelancing. The one calling the shots was Jane Brooks, the HOA president herself. She'd paid them cash, told them to teach him a lesson, scare his wife, and make sure the Freemans fell in line. When the deputies turned to Thomas and asked if he wanted to press charges, his answer was instant. "Absolutely. Impersonating officers is a felony, and putting hands on my wife, that's going to cost them." But Jane wasn't the type to admit defeat. By the end of the very same day, she pulled a move that shocked even the deputies, filing a lawsuit against Thomas. She claimed he had used excessive force and tarnished the reputation of the HOA. She even tried to spin her hired muscle as legitimate security contractors, as if the video evidence didn't exist. When Thomas's attorney read her complaint, he actually chuckled. "This is a gift," he said, sliding the paperwork back across his desk. "We'll counter harassment, assault, conspiracy, and with your recordings, it won't end the way she thinks it will." The court date came fast. On one side sat Jane, smug in her blazer, whispering frantically to her lawyer as though that could save her. On the other, Thomas sat steady, Sophia's hand in his, their attorney calm and composed. The judge wasted no time. He asked Jane's lawyer to present first, and the argument collapsed almost immediately. The moment Sophia's phone video appeared on the screen, it was game over. Everyone in the courtroom saw it, Sophia being slapped, Thomas's warning, the fake badges, the unlawful assault in broad daylight. Every word, every frame, undeniable. The judge leaned back, unimpressed. His verdict was blunt. "These men are criminals, and you, Mrs. Brooks, hired them. Your lawsuit is dismissed, and I am sanctioning you for abuse of the legal system." Thomas's lawyer rose, his voice calm but razor sharp. "Your Honor, we're filing a counterclaim. Conspiracy to commit assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and HOA harassment. My clients deserve restitution." Jane's face drained of color. The smugness vanished. By the time the gavel struck, the judge had not only thrown out her case, but also ordered her personally liable for damages. Even the other HOA board members in attendance refused to meet her eyes as they left. Her empire of intimidation was crumbling in real time. Meanwhile, the 3 imposters didn't get to walk out at all. They were denied bail, booked on multiple felony charges, their futures rewritten in the span of an afternoon. As Thomas left the courthouse, the sheriff himself stopped to shake his hand. "Good thing you kept your cool," he said. "Most people would have lost it. You probably saved your wife from something far worse." Thomas just nodded, pulling Sophia close. Jane thought she could rule through fear, through lies, through fake muscle. But in the end, she lost everything. Have you ever watched someone who thought they were untouchable lose everything right in front of the people they used to control? If you believe real justice will always outlast fake authority, hit that like button and subscribe to Story Arc, because every abuse of power deserves to be exposed no matter how small it starts.